Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you. For all of you who are here, thank you so much for joining us today. We're very, very happy to be able to continue to provide these events for you through our program SBIR at Connect or SBIR at Connect. For those of you who are new to our workshops, SBIR at Connect is a Connect program created through a partnership with NIWC Pacific under NAVWAR. NAVWAR is Naval Information Warfare Systems Command. Our first speaker today, Mr. Shadi Azum, will actually be talking about our partnership today and why we're so excited about our program. But Connect is a San Diego nonprofit that aims to provide help to innovators in the region through our different programs. So our programs vary from mentorship, education, as well as connecting you to investors. So if you're interested, please feel free to check out our website for more information at connect.org. Now for today, we have some great speakers, but before I introduce them, I do want to do a quick, very high level overview of NAVWAR. I know a lot of us are new to the government world, and acronyms and knowing where it all fits can seem daunting and confusing. So the way I think of the Department of the Navy is that it is tasked with a very important role to support our fleet, and therefore has many, 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 many goals in order to achieve that. So to do that, the DoD is broken down into a few system commands or SysComs to achieve these goals. Now, each SysCom has their own area of responsibility. NAVWAR is indeed one of those SysComs, and it focuses on information dominance, so like cybersecurity, tactical networks, communications. We will have two speakers. Well, all three speakers today are actually from NAVWAR, but you'll get to learn a little bit more about what they do in a little bit. I do want to note that we created a new page on our website, which hosts information about the other agencies that participate in SBIR. So the NIH, the DoD, the DOE, the NSF. But additionally, at the very bottom of the page, we have a list of the many program offices that participate in SBIR or SBIR at NAVWAR. So make sure you check it out and let us know what you think. Now for our great speakers, as I mentioned earlier, Shadi Azum will be speaking about our partnership, SBIR at Connect. Shadi Azum is the SBIR STTR program manager at NAVWAR. And then following Mr. Azum, we'll have two assistant program managers for science and technology, or APM for S&Ts, at two of the program offices at NAVWAR. So we'll have Carlos Alvarado from MITS program office, or multifunctional information distribution system, and Nigizi from PMW 150, the command and control program office. We will hold the questions until the very end. So please be patient with us as we do our best to answer them. If we don't get your question, please email us at sbir@connect.org, and we'll get those answers to you then. So a huge thank you to our speakers for setting time aside for us today. And with that, I will let Shadi get us started.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Gretel. I appreciate it. And that was like the perfect summary. Hi, everybody. I'm Shadi Azum. I'm the NAVWAR SBIR SCTR program manager. I apologize in advance. I was on travel last week, and then this week, apparently I got a cold, so I am just recovering from it. So if I start hacking up a little bit, I will try my best to reserve it as much as possible, but appreciate your attendance and bearing with me. So as Gretel mentioned, I'm a program manager for these two programs. For those that are just brand new and fresh to SBIR and STTR, think of them as seed funding that's eligible to small businesses to help grow your own portfolio and actually start up new innovative research and development in the hopes of addressing some of our needs at our command. So I manage the full spectrum of the actual program itself. So the topics that you see that as a company, if you are proposing to them, to the actual awards and seeing through the different awards and the different phases, we manage that at our office, or me and a team also manage it at our office. The folks that are on here on this call, Nick and Carlos, are two of our great established folks that actually push out some of these topics that help address the needs from their respective program offices. So I work intimately with them, as well as Gretel, as part of this whole SBIR SCTR lifecycle. And as Gretel mentioned, I want to take a little bit to talk about our partnership with Connect. So a facet of my role is to really help spread the word about these programs. We are trying our very best this year, especially in light of the pandemic, to kind of make everything accessible to you and not just within our own region. So we've kickstarted a lot of virtual resources. The first is training videos, which I highly encourage you guys to kind of take. SBIR and SCTR are very large. There's so much information to them, but we try to make it very nugget sized. So if you go to the website connect.org/SBIR, Gretel and I have teamed up to create training videos that explain different aspects about the program in little nugget sized tidbits that you can kind of absorb at your own time. Along with that partnership, which really is to help grow and spread the word about the program, we're doing monthly office hours where you have a chance to kind of talk with us for about 15 minutes and ask any questions that you have about the program. It's kind of the equivalent of stopping by one of our offices if you have a question about the program itself or what we do. And then last but not least, we're trying to make workshops like this, where we get you guys a chance to understand what we at the command do. So that's what Nick and Carlos will talk about in their respective program offices. But it'll also give you different aspects, like we'll have some upcoming workshops that talk about some success stories or some strategies, some helpful tips. I think the last workshop we did was about experimentation and how if you have been awarded an SBI or SCTR, you can actually formally experiment or formally put your technologies on a formal experimentation venue to help the transition aspect of your specific technology. So we encourage you to take advantage of these resources. Please reach out to either myself or Gretel. We talk quite frequently. So with that, I'll leave it and I'll stop talking and give the floor back to Gretel.
Thank you, Shadi, for that. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started with Carlos Alvarado. I'm sure he'll do a little introduction into himself. I think Carlos and Nick both have a lot of experience. If you didn't read their bios, please do. And I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself and share Carlos' slides. So Carlos, please go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Greta. Thank you, Shadi, for the opportunity. So my name is Carlos Alvarado, and I am the technology officer for our program office. So you'll be asking yourself, well, what a technology officer does. So I'm responsible to seek, engage, and mature technology nuggets that are of interest for our program office, and then I will discuss in specific what we do in our program office. But the idea over here is to help on figuring out or finding those golden nuggets that help them to polish them, to get them, for example, when you go and find a diamond, so you polish it, you clean it up, you get it ready for the setting, for the specific ring. So that's what I do. I mature the technology to a tier level 6, and then get it ready for transition in our program office. And as part of the phase 2 efforts out of this, we'll say out of this SBIR efforts, I help to mature, to get it ready, burn the wrist, and look for a transition. Typically, when we go into technologies, probably your experience is some of the technology doesn't make it. And the problem is that doesn't make it because you don't have the right partner to get you through and get you to transition. So that's what I do. So a little bit about our program office. Can you go on the next slide, please? So we are MID-stand for multi-functional informational distribution system. So we got a Title 10 for our products. We are the lead for Link 16. Some of you may be familiar or not. Also, we have designated from the air Advanced Tactical Data Link System lead from PEOT, NAVWAR PEOT, which is the organization we report to. Our program manager is Captain Schwartz, and our DPM is Mr. Rocky Rocky Mountain. Sounds funny, but it's Rocky Mountain, his name. Also, we have designation over some of our, I will say, waveforms, specifically Link 16 we, I will say, interact with other agencies that are responsible to overseeing for DoD the management of the waveforms called the Joint Tactical Networking Center. So that is the organization that is responsible to manage what is called the DoD Information Repository when it comes to waveforms. So we partner for them for our specific product, which is Link 16, our waveform that is Link 16 and TTNT. So we also are the program pillar for supporting the Naval Integrated Fire Control. We support that, and as well as we are the foundation for the Fleet Naval Joint Tactical Grid. So we provide tactical data links, and they're basically the foundational communication, or the glue that holds all the airborne platforms together via a network that we deliver to them through Link 16 and TTNT. We have, I will say, on the Naval Integrated Fire Control, we also look into adapted networking technologies to ensure that sustainment of the tactical data for joint coalition and international warfighters. So next slide, please. We'll give you a little bit more about the programs or the products we deliver. So MITS is, we got three core products, but I will say three core functions. One of them is called the MITS Low Volume Tactical Terminal. It is a coalition of 5 different countries, including US, or Italy, Spain, Germany, and France. And we collaborate to develop this kind of a hardware-defined radio that enables communication across 55 different countries. So we have a big FMS footprint out there. And as well as we coordinate agreements for enhancements. So the latest enhancement that we're coordinating is BU2, and the BU2 will enable us to provide Link 16 with the modernization of the crypto. Also the frequency remap for compliance with FAA mandates, and as well as enhanced throughput to enable the terminal to, I will say, have a bigger throughput than what is currently going on. So we are already, the development's already complete. We're in production, meaning we're delivering, I will say, hardware out there to the fleet. And that's where we stand from the hardware-defined radio. From the software-defined radio is a Miss Jitters. Miss Jitters is a US development only. We have already a couple of different products that we deliver. I forgot to mention to you that from MITS LBT, we have 12 different variants. For the Miss Jitters, we have 3 different variants ongoing already, which is the concurrent alternating to enable 4 different nets on Link 16. Also, we have the tactical targeting networking technology, which is the first airborne IP to be delivered out there to the fleet. We're currently in the process of qualifying the waveform in, I will say, doing the first article qualification, and as well as doing some flight tests to determine functionality and how this waveform perform on, I will say, on the field. The other effort that we're doing is an effort with the Air Force, with the F-22, and we're providing the enhanced IFFT capability at a spot of the terminal. So Miss Jitters is, I forgot to mention, that is a 4-channel terminal, while the MITS LBT is a 1-channel terminal. So we have, I will say, growth capability to add all the waveforms as part of the design, and that's what enables us to deliver multiple capabilities within the same footprint. The other part that we play a role is, and that's the other function, is what is called the Naval Integrated Fire Control Tactical Data Link. So we provide the tactical data link capability to all the platforms out there, and we, in coordination with other program management office across NAVWAR, we deliver what is called the long-range power on contested environments, and as well as within the netted battle environment. So as I mentioned to you before, we provide the network for the airborne, I will say, platforms out there, and that's how we deliver that, as well as other advanced capabilities. Next slide, please. So how we provide accelerations on this effort. So we basically work with our industry to I will say expedite the development of the products, as well as expedite the capability to, I will say, increase the production to deliver terminals to the fleet. We also try to be smart in the way that we provide solutions and deliver solutions to the fleet. But I will say to meet, our customers, the platform's need, as well as to comply with DoD mandates. And we use different contracting strategies to accelerate this capability. So far we have delivered on the MSJITR side about 2,500 plus terminals today. And we have, I will say, a very intensive drumbeat on delivering capabilities and able to provide robust solutions, as well as looking into better ways to deliver these capabilities via software and firmware solutions that can be integrated in the field instead of getting the terminals back to the developers to get an upgrade. So that's another thing that we do. What has been successful? For example, one of the things that we have been very successful is bringing technologies from small businesses. For example, one of the current developments that we're working on, we had a very, I will say, contentious thermal challenge. And we were able to put the topic together. We had, I will say, significant participation of 30 plus vendors. Out of the 30 plus vendors, we selected 4 vendors, and ultimately 2 of the vendors became the winners for the phase 2. And currently that thermal technology has transitioned as part of our development and is providing a significant improvement and reduction of heat from 20 to 40% of improvement in the terminal. So that's an excellent solution. We have, I would say, accelerating the CNM4 capability to 40 plus squadrons on the Navy side of the house. Also, we're supporting the Air Force on that. And the challenge that we deal with is that we have different stakeholders as well as different government bodies that we have to go through to the certification. So we have our system is an NSA type of encryption device that requires the certification from NSA, as well as requires all the certification from FAA to be able to I will say, transmit. And as you know, with the spectrum challenges that we have, we need to ensure that our terminals are compliant with that. Next slide, please. So areas that we are, I will say, seeking, I will say, ideas and support for the industry are shown on this slide over here. If you want me to go to any specific of them, I'll be more than happy to do that. So take a look into that, and if you think there's a fit for you over here, then please let us know. I want to be sure that I'm going to be conscious also about the time for the other presenter and have time for discussion on Q&A kind of a thing. But if you see something over here that gets your attention and you say, yes, I got a great idea over here, let's go over this, let's talk about it. So please reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to support. Next slide, please. So I think that's my last slide. Greta, thank you so much for leading the way on taking care of the slide. But if any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Carlos. And as Carlos said, if you are interested in something specific, you can email me at sbir@connect.org, and I'll make sure that Carlos gets that information and we can connect you all that way. So thank you, Carlos. We appreciate your time today. And our next presenter is Nick. Nick is the APM for S&T, which is Assistant Program Manager for Science and Technology at PMW 150, which is the Command and Control Program Office. So thank you so much, Nick. I will go ahead and mute myself and share your slides.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here. I want to tell the audience you couldn't have 2 better people than Shadi and Gretel in your corner to make you successful. They are wonderful. The fact that they still talk to me is amazing. So I appreciate them very much. I'm also from New Jersey, and you'll get that every now and then when I talk, you know what I'm saying? And what you're about to see did not fall off a truck. It's actually stuff we do in PMW 150. So I am the Assistant Program Manager for S&T for PMW 150. They are the command and control center for the Navy. So what's command and control? So we'll go to the next slide a little bit. So I'm going to talk a little about who we are, then what I'm doing in what's called the command and control experimentation world. It's actually, we call it the C2X project. So I'll talk a little about that. And we'll talk about some of the new things we're doing like microservices and then some of the experiments. Next slide. Okay, so who is PMW 150? Well, if you see here, you see three themes. On the far left, you see support C2, which has just moved out of our sphere of responsibility, but we're still very much involved. And what that entails is building systems and bringing them to the fleet that manages logistics in all ways, shapes, and forms for ships and submarines and air. We do all of those logistics types of things and make those systems work. And then in the middle, you see maritime C2, and that what that entails is command and control for the fleet. When we fight, we need to be able to communicate, but how we command the information to control our forces is what that's all about. And it's very, very much an art as it is technology. And this is where I spend a lot of my time trying to develop new ways to manage our assets and make them more readily available to be in a position to win. And then finally on the left, and it's a little bit of what Midge was doing with Carlos, we have tactical C2, and that's where our Link 16 and our Midge terminals get employed on the ships and in the aircraft, and that's how we move tactical data link data around between us. And there are multiple things that you saw from Carlos that are going on, and we're the users of what he does. And we get it out there to the fleet so we can manage it and make sure we have comms, right? You have to have communications in order to do command and control. Okay, next slide, please. So a couple of priorities. Hey, we're in the business of protecting and serving our nation. So we deliver lethal capacity. And that's what our job is when we have to. And we do this by doing a number of things like compile to combat, which is moving applications out much better. Battle management aids, BMAs. This is a new theme where we're moving new capabilities out much faster and simpler so the fleet can use them quicker. So I'm not going to go through all of these. You can read them. What I will say is we're transforming what's called the kill chain, how we fight. And that is a very specific type of venue. If you may have seen recently a new book came out called Kill Chain. I would highly recommend it as reading. It's really a very, very good book, and it really explains what the kill chain is and why. What I'm trying to do with command and control now is be left of the kill chain, which is faster and more lethal, quicker for the warfighter. So we're also working on improving decisions through in the implementation of a number of things I'll get into. Improve situational awareness when we're in an area of responsibility, like the Indo-PACOM, Indo-Pacific area. That's an area of responsibility for our fleet admirals and all of our ships, and how we improve what's going around in the environment and what's going on is a big, big part of what we do. Increased readiness, naturally, we talked about that. Operationally agile. How can we move people quickly to get them to the position where they can be successful? And data to decision is a big deal. So much data out there right now. It's ridiculous. So how we improve not just moving the data, but making the data, transforming it into information and making it something the warfighter can use and ingest seamlessly is what we're all about. Integration between, now it's a big term there, C2 ISR. So that's command and control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and combat systems. So all of those areas are specific to how we do things. And like I mentioned, command and control is my big one, but ISR is really the satellites and how we monitor and view people with all types of different systems. So we work with the PMW 120 folks who are responsible for that. And then there's the combat systems, which are basically what's called the Aegis combat system, primarily for our ships. And then in the aircraft, they have multiple types of combat systems. So we work with all of them to get that data from them so we then can make better decisions faster. And then developing frameworks that are very much improved over what we've done, And the one I'll really allude to here is what's called the service mesh architecture, which is allowing us now to use microservices in a way we've never used before, and it's transforming what we do on the fly. All of that came out of SBIRs and some FNCs, which are future naval capabilities out of Office of Naval Research. But a lot of this work is all done under the Small Business Administration and this SBIR and STTR program. And I love STTRs because I get to work with the universities. So that's something else to think about when you're looking at trying to do these things. Next slide, please. All right, so what's command and control experimentation? Well, it's a project. It's my project, and this is where I do all of my research. Everything encompassing command and control falls under the command and control project for PMW 150. So I'm primarily applied research. I do some basic research, very little now. I'm more the application and taking basic and applying it real world problems and getting out there underway and testing it. So we are operational real-time data in the lab. So we're not working anymore with just faux data, as I'll call it. I'm actually bringing in live data. We work at the classified level quite a bit. And that live data is critical because I'm building the next one, AI ML models, and we're starting to implement artificial intelligence and operations research type of statistical methods, as well as machine learning neural networks and Bayesian models that allow us then to do the kinds of things and answer the kind of questions we need to answer for our warfighters faster. And that NIPR, SIPR, and JWICS, that means unclassified for NIPR. SIPR is secret, and JWICS is at the top secret level. So now I have an integration test facility that I use. And then what I do is I get out on ships. I'm leaving in a couple of weeks in August. We'll be out on a carrier and a couple of DDGs testing. Well, DDG is a ship. It's a destroyer and it's called Destroyer Guided Missile. That's why the G is there. So we'll be out testing some of our new command and control AI machine learning algorithms and see how they work in a real world environment. And some of the systems we work with are Maritime Tactical Command and Control, and the GEEK system is a global command and control system, maritime, and the UB is Unified Build. We have a new system. Knights Next is not an acronym, it's our METOC system here at the NAVWAR, and we get our meteorological data from that. And then we're working heavy with another SysCom, NAVAIR, Naval Aviation. They're building battle management aids, like I said, and we're integrating them onto this new architecture. So we have NAVAIR, NAVC, and NAVWAR all working together on these new architectures, which is kind of exciting. And finally, we have some other future stuff coming up. Spectral is a unique system that provides some ISR capability as well as DSIGs and increment 2 coming that will give us that other flavor that we need so we can make decisions more readily and with better insight. Next slide. Okay, so like I mentioned, the C2BMAs that leverage AIMM models, we're starting to train them. And if you're familiar with machine learning algorithms, you have to label a lot of data. So we're looking at new ways to label data faster. And we're trying to do things and generate decisions very quickly. Fight now, fight tonight. Those are the kinds of themes. If I have to go to war right now, who's in a position? Are they ready? Are they capable? Are they suitable? Those kind of themes. Do they have what they need? So we're trying to make those decisions and generate options much faster. And this is why the artificial intelligence umbrella that we've developed is going to play heavily into what we do. And then rapidly identify disruptions as we're moving through time and space. These temporally constrained environments, things happen constantly, weather, everything. So how do we replan quickly? And that's a big one. And then automating and monitoring assessment, like I said, left of the kill chain. So that'll make us faster. So I would, like I said, recommend, if you don't know much about what a kill chain is, you should read the book. It's a very good book. And then enable that kill chain and web development so we can get it out to the warfighter quicker. And bottom line is we have to deliver confidence and trust for the commanders. And all of the things that I just mentioned, hopefully we'll start to bring them into our sphere of understanding and let them trust these new technologies. Because right now it's very hard for them to trust anything but what they know. They're very, very capable and brilliant at what they do. So bringing in new technologies is always one of those hit the I believe button moments where you got to get them to believe it before they'll use it. So that's part of our job as well. Okay, next slide. This is a kill chain. I figured I'd throw this in here just because maybe you never saw one. So the normal kill chain is find, fix, track, target, engage, assess. It's always what we've done through the years. I'm an old targeteer in the Navy. I spent 30 years in the Navy, in the reserves, and I did targeting. I did this for a living. What we're doing now and understanding this, I've realized how slow we are on this. So we've developed technologies to be left of the kill chain, and that's what you're seeing there. Observe and plan, and then assess, observe, plan. Continuous understanding of the environment is what we're trying to do. And that'll give us the effects we want to make recommendations to get things onto the kill chain to get it downrange faster. So that's what that's all about. And the bottom line is we're trying to continuously hold adversaries at risk using long range fires. And that's what it's really what we do. And in order to do that, you have to have a significant amount of command and control readily available and working continuously in order to make all those pieces happen. Because it's not just about us. We have coalition partners. We have to work with them. We're not going to do this alone. So this is a big deal to get this right. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about some of the technologies we've gone to, because I think as you're starting to develop, one of the biggest problems we have is you want to do it your way. Well, that's nice, and it's fine for doing for science projects, but we have to be better than that now. So we've come up with methods to support our developers in understanding how to do things a little better when you're writing code. Currently, we do things with large code bases, very monolithic, extremely tightly coupled, and require a lot of coordination to do updates. A lot of people touching a code all the time. So there's this single code base mentality. Much more complicated to deliver that kind of large application and then sustain it. The big thing you never see on the science side is how the program offices have to sustain these systems throughout their lifetime. So life cycle becomes very important. And if we get better at the left side, developing, the better and easier and cheaper it's going to be for them to sustain and get out there. So what I did is we went to a microservice kind of theme. Smaller code bases, easy to develop and sustain, smaller teams working together. It's very loosely coupled systems, very independent. Software dependencies are limited only to APIs talking to each other. And these teams can work, they don't have to work together. 2-3 people working on a particular piece of an application is great. So this foundation supports this very decoupled type of application logic I've been wanting. And because you have small teams, they're decoupled, your release cycles don't have to be together. So I can release a microservice today, I can release a couple of other ones in a couple of weeks. I can get them out there, all tested, and through what we call IA certification, which is information assurance, which is an extremely critical piece. All the code is evaluated for cybersecurity. So we're looking for a lot of different things in the code now, backdoors, vectors, those kinds of themes are all there. So we've basically put a lot more scrutiny into this, and we've developed some techniques to help our technologists develop better ways to build their code. And that's really why microservices are very important. And that's why we went to a service mesh architecture. These are themes that industry uses very, very effectively, and it has made them extremely productive. They are the smart ones about it. I'm just bringing it into our world, and that's what we're testing this year is a microservice set of applications with a service mesh architecture on a ship underway. Exciting stuff. Anyway, next slide. All right, so why do we need microservices and why do we need a mesh? Like I said, I got ahead of myself there, but much lower costs and implementation time when we do it this way. We minimize configuration complexity. The configuration complexity goes ways down. It's really remarkable how we're saving ourselves, because in our world, we have to have certificates on everything. And if you have containers, that's a great thing, but then each container requires a certificate. We're going to have thousands of containers. That means thousands of certificates. If you use a mesh architecture, you don't need thousands. You need one or two, and everything then is handled within the mesh. Tremendous savings in that way. So, and then finally, the apps inherit all the features without the need to be aware of the mesh. So all you have to do is build your capability. We'll worry about how it's going to work in our world. We just want you all concentrating on bringing your great ideas and your innovation to what we need in the Navy. And that's really what we want you focusing on. You don't need to worry about infrastructure or all those other silly things. We help you with all of that. So anyway, and I put down there, we have a system called ACS, Agile Core Services, which bring some of the platform as a service capabilities with them. So we use that, and when we go to deploy, and then we build our mesh off of what they've provided, and it's a very good way to accommodate sustainability of these systems on hundreds of ships or at land sites. Okay, next slide. Okay, so what I'm doing this year, I just mentioned a little bit of experimentation. We're in Trident Warrior 21, it's called. I have 3 ships, 2 maritime operation centers, COM 3rd Fleet, Commander 3rd Fleet here in San Diego, and Commander Pacific Fleet out in Oahu. And we're putting systems. I'm leaving Friday to install out at Pac Fleet, and we're coming back and installing our server at 3rd Fleet after that. And then we go to the ships and we install our servers, and then we're ready to go. Excuse me. We're going to test all these new service mesh architecture and moving data around in real time. And then we're going to actually show them how the machine learning algorithms are starting to work and coming to life. So we're on the precipice of something really, really exciting right now. And we're very happy. It's taken a while to get here. Okay, next slide. In summary, we do applied research. We do rapid prototyping. But we have an operationally relevant environment, which is very unique because we're using live data, which allows me to train these algorithms every day. Instead of getting on a ship and trying to gather data once in a while, I can see what they're doing in a real world environment every day, and we can tune them. And that's very, very much critical to how these things are going to be employed and trusted down the road. And then we do flex events. That Trident Warrior is called the Fleet Experiment, Flex for short. And we do those every year, and that's where we get underway with the fleet, and we get some real good insight. And finally, we do risk mitigation. So as these technologies start to advance before they transition to the program of record, POR, it's one of those great things that we're able to mitigate the risk of the program office taking the software in a state that's good enough for them to transition it and not put a lot of money into it to fix it. And that's one of the key features of why we do the C2X project, is to make this code better, faster, and more readily transitionable for a reduced cost to the program office. And that's really critical. So a lot of different ways we've learned to do things. Like I said, none of this stuff fell off the truck in New Jersey. People call me Tony Soprano sometimes. I don't know about that. Anyway, but I think that's my last slide, and I'm going to turn it back over to Gretel.
Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate your time. I get the Tony Soprano reference, little accent. Once again, thank you to all of our speakers today. I do know that there was a couple of participants that weren't able to join on time, so don't worry. The meeting is being recorded, so we'll be able to share the recording with you all via email with a follow-up and a survey. Please let us know what you think so that we can be better. But also you can check out our Vimeo account, and it has not just this event and this workshop, but our past ones. So we've done one introducing the SBIR program. So it's a great one where Shadi shared a lot of tips. And we've also done one similar to this where we highlighted 2 different program offices. And then as well as this one, we also had one on Navy experimentation. So please feel free to go to connect.org/SBIR and you can find all of that information. Now, we do have a couple of questions, but I think Because this is SBIR Connect, I do want to open it up a little bit more to our speakers in terms of the SBIR world. And I would like to ask both Carlos and Nick how the SBIR program has impacted your research. And if you could share, I know that Nick shared a little bit of the importance in SBIR with his research, but if you could share a little bit more of why the program is useful to you and why you think people should continue to apply.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, please go ahead, whoever.
Sure. From our program office perspective, I think the SBIR program office has enabled us to open the door to look into those golden nuggets that we need. So we are software-defined, intensive software-defined radio. So we're looking into some software, firmware solutions that we can easily, I would say, mature and integrate. And SBIR program office has enabled us to reach out instead of going to our primes directly and paying buck of billions of dollars to get capabilities. We can reach out to you that got the expertise and the agility and the speed to respond to what we need. And the SBIR program office provides that vehicle to make it happen. Just make us work a little bit on putting together the topic paper, and that at least to express our idea as to what we want, what are the nuggets we're pursuing. And you guys do the magic on providing us solutions that probably do the fitting that we look into it. We ask you for proposals, and you guys got the opportunity then to participate. And hopefully, if everything goes well, we transition our program office. The motto in our program office is that we would not commit to SBIR unless our program managers are committed to transition. So there's I will say there's a close commitment from a program office that, as for example, if you see one of our topics, eventually that topic is going to transition. And that's what we do on all the topics. I'm managing around 22 different contracts on SBIR efforts, both from NAVWAR as well as from NAVWAR. Happens to be our program office. It's a dual-hatted office. We from the I will say from the acquisition perspective, we're overseen or we're managed or owned by NAVWAR, but from the execution perspective, we're managed through NAVWAR. So we get the opportunity to access both. I will say words kind of a thing. We have the opportunity to influence our platforms to look into these technologies for other applications. And for example, an effort that spin-off kind of this SBIR effort is called the Interference Excision System Working Group that we have in order to address interference excision or solutions that enable us to operate on those challenge environments via hardware, software, and firmware solution. We have a great participation from small businesses bringing their, I will say, smart ideas and smart solutions and enable us to expedite and transition a lot of this technology. Another coworker that probably in the future will be talking to you, his name is Bill Yu, and we're in the process of transition, I will say, millions and millions of dollars of technology that we're buying from small businesses to and integrate that as part of the efforts that we're doing, as well as currently in a small business that we haven't even completed the phase 2 effort, and we're already transitioning the technology. So overall, I mean, the SBIR program office of SBIR has opened the door for us and for everyone across the program office to look into different solutions from a different perspective in which we don't need millions and millions of dollars to get the solutions through, I will say, prime vendors when we can get it to you. And our commitment to you is that we help you to the transition, taking this to what is called the valley of death on your great ideas. That is when the idea is a great idea, but nobody's willing to take the lead on helping you to transition that to those specific, I will say, users or our vendors and our prime. And as part of the phase 1 and phase 2 effort, we match you with our primes to ensure that there's a flow of information and that we assess all the associated risk with that. But that wouldn't happen without the support of Gretter and Shadi and these efforts. And these two guys have been, I mean, super on enabling us to make this happen.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Nick, I don't know if you want to share. I know you already shared a little bit more, but if
Yeah,
there's
that's fine.
anything
But
else-
I think one of you two should answer the chat there about
yes.
intellectual property. I'll back. I think Carlos said more of it very well and eloquently. So I think we're good there.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Yes, I will read this question because I think it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about. And I'll go ahead and ask it to Shadi, who's a SBIR program manager at NAVWAR. But this question goes, I'll skip a little bit of the beginning, but how is intellectual property addressed and protected if the product is commercialized after prototyping or proof of concept, and how are profits or equity shared? So I think this is a little bit of introduction to SBIR in general, because it's a little bit different than normal contracting. But Shadi, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think to address that question is it ties to that for every SBIR award, companies are provided what we call SBIR data rights. So it allows, and there's, I'm simplifying it so much now when I talk about it, but essentially it allows the government to use the products and technologies that's developed under the SBIR program, but can't share it outside of that government realm. So it's a 20-year non-renewable period. And we do actually have a video on that, actually alluding to some of the training videos that we have. So if you go to connect.org/SBIR, you'll see a series of 9 videos that we have up. One of them will talk about SBIR data rights, which Alex, hopefully that will further address your question, but you are given certain rights as a company, to put it simply.
Yeah, and then to touch base on the profits or equity, SBIR doesn't take any of the equity in your company. So, go ahead, Carlos. I think you put your hand up.
Yes, Charlie, I would like to address a little bit more about this, because our program office is going through that on a regular basis to try to transition technology. So there's 2 ways to transition technology to our program office. One is to licensing your product to our primes, or for us to buy the product from you and then work with our primes to integrate it. We prefer the earlier one version, and that's why we try to mature early on with our primes, as eventually when your technology is ready for transition, your technology will transition with our primes, and you'll be a third-party supplier to our primes. We have software and hardware solutions. From the hardware solutions, then our primes acquire your hardware as part of the overall solicitation that they do when we support the different lots of terminals that we deliver. For the software and firmware solution, we have some of the vendors that provide, I will say, licensing agreement, as well as some of them have got more innovative in the way that they have different, I will say, protecting their software or firmware, I will say, via the specific crypto keys and other kind of stuff that they enable to provide those licenses and things like that. But I mean, as Chadi indicated, those are the SBIR rights. But as you come transition to our program office, I wanted to let you know that there's possibilities. It's a matter of working this out. And I start to work that discussion as soon as we get the first kickoff on your topic. I'll be talking to you about licensing, about to start to think about that as you're progressing on that, because it's something that you should not undermine. You got to get your lawyer involved. You got to get the right people involved, so you don't lose any rights of your technology.
Yeah, and I think I'll go ahead and kind of answer a little bit more on that question. It's the SBIR money is non-dilutive money, so we're giving it to you to do this research. So we don't take any equity. However, it is a contract, so it's not just a grant. So although we are giving you money, we do expect something in return, and that is depending on which phase for SBIR, and we do have a video on the phases, so you can follow that through. It's just based on your work with the program offices. And I think Carlos mentioned something really important, which, the ultimate goal is for your technology to transition. And that's whether it is internal to the government or external in the commercial world. So that is kind of one of the major goals of SBIR, is to kind of help you and help ourselves, right, with your technology to be better and to support our fleet. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a couple of the questions that have been asked. I think since we're in the topic of SBIR. I will go ahead and ask Shadi. One of the ones is, has the SBIR and STTR funding increased with the latest budget? I think I already know the answer, but go ahead.
So our budget is, so the funding that we get for the program, just for everyone, just a little fun fact, is that it's a tax on our own research and development budget. So that fluctuates every year. We don't have purview necessarily into what next year's budget looks like. I can always say that, we're at the beck and call, or we're at the needs of what our program officers are looking for. So if they come with a specific, like if Nick and Carlos come with a specific topic or a specific request, we always try to make that happen. So I guess it's the best kosher way of putting everything together without giving specifics about our funding line. But
yeah, and I think one good way, because every agency is different, but you can always look at the agency you're interested in the SBIR program. And like if you go to NAVWAR.com, you'd be able to see how much they offer for phase 1s and phase 2s. So the money's typically the same because you have to do a cost proposal for each one of them. So in terms of the budget every year, it doesn't vary much from phase 1 to phase 2. It's typically the same. If it does go up, they'll do a little announcement on the NAVWAR.com page for that. Okay, so there is this question, and I think this one is for Nick, but I could be wrong. And the question goes, have you evaluated the benefits of implementing data fabric under your existing AI platform and data warehouse?
Oh, good question. So we're in just the instance of the data fabric, as I'm going to assume a non-data lake environment. So our data is very stateless, most of it. There's some stateful data from the databases, but evaluating it is the whole game, right? That's what we're trying to do, is take all this data, bring it together, and come up with recommendations quickly for the warfighter. So we've developed a set of tools that are specific to doing unique things as we move through that chain. So we don't have just one tool, we have 7 tools, all doing a very unique piece of the puzzle. And that data is then used by that specific tool to come up with a solution that gets passed on to the next one or shared in a parallel manner with others. So when you get to the end, we're making these recommendations and composing things on how we use our assets in real time. So it's a convoluted environment, but we're getting real understanding of how to use real data in real time and come up with these unique answers. So we've started, we're learning. It helps us with labeling data so we can then better train. But I think the critical piece is, what questions are we asking these technologies to answer for us? And that drives that data fabric on how we manipulate it and manage it through that temporally constrained environment. I hope that answered that.
Thank you, Nick. I'll let you know if there's a follow-up. This question is for Carlos. Carlos, can you elaborate on nugget number 10? And I'll go ahead and put it up on my screen so everybody can see the presentation and what they're, that's not it.
Sure, no, he's talking about a model-based system engineering. So a model-based system engineering solutions, what we're trying to do, and currently we kick off an effort on that. We're looking into how to, on several years, system engineering side of the house, we have been working with static models, meaning pictures of schematics, things that we put on a digital format, but they're static. There's not too much you can do with that. So now what we wanted to do is to take all those specifications, all those representations, all the supposedly relationships on specifications to hardware on the physical configuration, to put them together into what is called a digital twin representation of the terminal. So why this is so important? The reason why it's so important is because every time we need to, I will say, deliver or integrate one terminal to one given platform, we have to sometimes wait until we have a physical terminal to connect to that physical platform, that when we connect it in, and hopefully that is gonna work, though it doesn't work. So we got to go back and figure out why it didn't work. And it requires a lot of data analytics, a lot of testing. You have this wrong software configuration, you have the wrong connection, you have the wrong cable. And sometimes after you go into everything, is basically the terminal and the platform are not suited to work together. So you got to go back to the drawing board and figure out how, the sequence, the diagram sequence that goes to in order to enable to make that happen. So instead of doing that, what we like to do is to do all the stuff digitally. So you have, I will say, an object model representation of a digital representation of the terminal that shows the interaction between the specification, the physical representation of the terminal, the exchange of information that has to happen for compliance with all the specific requirements and other kind of stuff, in a way that when you want to validate something, figure out, well, this requirement, what is the relationship of this requirement with the other requirement, or what is the relationship of this requirement with that specific part number? So how, for example, a component impacts something, and if I'm changing a software, so how that happens digitally. So that's where we want it to be. So when we go back to the platforms, instead of giving a piece of the hardware and waiting for everything to connect and hopefully it's going to work, what we're going to give them is a model of the terminal that then they can take that model and integrate with their model. And then in software, from the software perspective, then we can understand the behavior of the two of them interacting and the exchange of information, determining what if we have the proper ones and zeros, where do we have the zeros, where we have discrepancies. And that enables us to do that very early in the process. And enabling that, do it very early in the process, enable us to mitigate a lot of the technical risk that comes associated with that, and the cost associated with integrating a lot of our platforms. It would expedite capability to the fleet. It expedite our ability to provide new enhancements and test those enhancements before even we deploy. So that's the value of the model-based system engineering, and that's why we embarking. We already have 2 vendors enabling this, but I will say that there's other things, there's always other people with other ideas out there. And I will say we're trying to learn. There's a lot of compliance on that we need to move. DoD is mandating, or the Navy is mandating, for us to move into digital environment. There's a Navy office that is responsible to us to move onto that digital environment. There's a lot of, if you go out there online, you're looking to enable digital, I will say, enterprise or naval digital strategy. And you find a lot of documents as relate to that. And that's where we're trying to reach, and that's where we're trying to move. Happens to be, we are, I will say, one of the innovators, one that used cyber funding to make this happen and to enable to capture a lot of great ideas. And we were really impressed of the knowledge and capability that a lot of those vendors out there have on this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. That was great. We only have 1 minute left, so I don't think we'll get through all of the questions, but please make sure you email us if you do have more questions for our speakers. The last question I'll ask is how people can connect with the right points of contact who would be interested in their research on technology. I'll go ahead and get started with that question. I think the best way to do so is to look at NAVWAR, what NAVWAR does. So we do have that page that I mentioned, but you can also look on their website or other agencies that you might be interested in. And then once you identify the program office that is closely related to your technology, is reaching out to, if it's in terms of SBIR, is reaching out to their program manager, so like Shadi, or reaching out to people they have interactions with, so like me, and then we can facilitate that conversation and link you up via email to kind of drive those conversations forward. So since our time is up, I do want to thank you all so much for being here, to remind you that we'll be sharing the video and to fill out our survey so we can continue to service you better. I do want to give a huge thank you to all of our speakers. I had the pleasure of working with both Nick and Carlos when I was internal to NAVWAR, what feels like ages ago. So it was really nice to see you both again, and I'm very thankful for your time. I'm very thankful for Shadi's time always. He is our series regular. So thank you so much. And please, 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 if you have any leftover questions, don't hesitate to ask. I will do my best to connect you to our speakers or to Shadi if you need to. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time and we look forward to seeing you again in our next workshop. Thank you, Carlos and Nick.